Hi, good morning everybody. Welcome to week 3 of Essential Reporting with myself, Dave Lafferty. I know you all fairly well now. So we're going to continue this module with a bit of basic news writing today, and we're gonna cover quite a bit. So here we go. We're going to look at news writing using language correctly. We're going to look at style guides, grammar, punctuation. I know most of you are all over this. You know you're very good grammatically, but it won't do us any harm just to go over a few things first off. But first, I'm recording this on Monday, and there's a pretty big story broken overnight and this morning. So I just want to have a quick look at the papers, really. Mentioned last week about how much good we can do as journalists, how we can be a force for good, and one of our primary functions is to hold the powers that be to account. Now, be it government officials, either local, regional, national, or even international, and heads of companies, heads of community organisations, anybody who holds a position which needs to be scrutinised, and it's our job as journalists to keep these people on the toes and to reveal to people if there's been any wrongs committed. And this morning, really interesting story which the Guardian has gone pretty big on. Overnight, there was a massive data leak. About 12 million documents, known as the Pandora Papers, have been leaked to the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, which is made up of about 600 journalists who volunteer to give their time to trawl through a great deal of information. So these journalists have looked through all these papers and they've picked out some pretty damaging revelations from a host of people, heads of state, billionaires, public officials. I know Tony Blair, a former Prime Minister, has been embarrassed a bit by this because it's been revealed that he avoided, legally albeit, paying a £300,000 tax bill when he bought an office in London. So it just shows what we can do as journalists, really, when we get hold of certain information, and it produces a dramatic tranche of stories, if you like. It's loads of stories online across many platforms, not just here in the UK but around the world, and also striking front pages. So good, solid investigative journalism. So I'd urge you all to read the stories about these Pandora Papers, because there'll be plenty going on over the next week. Like I say, this is last Monday when I'm recording this, but you can see the power of that front page on the Guardian. They've mentioned people from Moscow to Monaco, the King of Jordan. I know there's a Tory party donor. Some revelations about him. So there's loads of stories come out of this. The Eye has picked up on this, on the Tony Blair angle that I just mentioned. So they've zeroed in on a certain story, which is obviously pertinent to everybody in the United Kingdom. The Times, presumably they got that sort of a bit late, so they've used it as a second story. They've gone big on Britain's aim to be producing green electricity by 2035. The Mail followed up on the Sarah Everard case, and there's been a further development overnight in being a police officer who served in the same unit as Wayne Couzens has now been charged with rape. So the Metropolitan Police is under fire, there's no doubt about it, and their chief, Cressida Dick, has been facing calls for her to resign, and she may well be feeling more pressure as this week continues. Daily Mirror gone on a COVID story. Daily Express, like I say, the big supporters of Boris Johnson. They think their audience voted for Boris Johnson, so they tend to produce stories that reflect good, strong messages from the Prime Minister. The Financial Times has led with a Rishi Sunak story, and the Sun has gone on John Barrowman, who was getting a bit of stick, there's no doubt, for his antics on the set of Doctor Who, which were quite outrageous by all accounts. So they've followed up on that. Daily Star, for its own agenda, for its own readership, its own audience, and they've gone on the weather. So apparently we're in for a good bit of weather over the next few days as a look at that. So anyway, that was just a quick flick through the papers. The main thing I'd like you to look at is a story, surrounding the Pandora Papers. Have a look how the journalists are reporting this and take it in, and the fantastic examples of investigative journalism. So, okay. Right, back to the slides. I'll be doing this in probably two or three parts today, so we'll try and keep it quite concise and clear. A couple of the C's there. So, just a bit of reminder, you've heard me talk about this many occasions now over the last couple of weeks, but these 6 questions do underpin what you do as journalists when you think about writing a story, when you think about interviewing people as well. These are the key components that you need to get in a news story. So have a good think about those. Who, what, where, when, why, how. Also note the order as well. A good starting point to ask you questions or think about your news story in that particular order. That's the detail there. Okay, anybody recognise this guy? He's from not far where I live. Harry Styles. Well, it turns out Harry is not only an extremely talented musician, but he's also a guardian of the English language, as we are. So you might remember this story, actually. It was a few years ago now, but at one of his concerts, one of his fans was holding up a banner, "Hi Harry, you're so nice." So anyway, good old Harry proved he's a stickler for good grammar. So the banner was spelt, "Hi Harry, you're so nice." Your was spelt Y-O-U-R. So Harry obviously noticed this, thought, "I'm not having that." Went into the crowd, grabbed the banner and put the apostrophe and added the E so that it was spot on. So well done, Harry. In a contrast to that, I just want to show you this short video. Some of you may recognise this guy, but it's going back a few years now. It's Dan Quayle, and in 1992 he was Vice President of the United States of America, serving under the first President Bush, George H. Bush, and he had aspirations to be president himself, but things went a bit pear-shaped, to say the least. So I'll just show you this video. Okay, well, what Dan Quayle was doing there was he was visiting a primary school and presiding over a spelling bee, and he asked the child to spell potato, and when the child correctly spelled potato, Mr. Quayle suggested he put an E on the end of it. And what was interesting was all the other adults in the room applauded that. So obviously that was a mistake. The child pupil had spelt potato correctly. Now, that might not seem too much, but that basically put an end to Dan Quayle's hopes of ever becoming president. The video and the footage of that went all around the world. Dan Quayle was henceforth thought to be inept, didn't know what he was doing, and he later wrote in his memoirs that that was excruciating. He tried to blame a cue card, and he basically accepted that that was a huge blunder. Essentially, he lost credibility because of that spelling error. And to a lesser extent, you as journalists as well can lose credibility if you don't get your grammar and your spelling absolutely spot on. Readers do notice it. Sometimes it can be quite unforgiving. You can write a wonderful story, but if you miss out an apostrophe, then your reader's going to know that, remember that. And quite famously, The Guardian still gets a bit of stick for the errors that do appear, and it's, Private Eye pick up on it quite a lot, and they call them the Gurneyad rather than the Guardian. So they've, rightly or wrongly, the Guardian have got a bit of a reputation for spelling errors. So it's incredibly important that if you've got any gaps in your knowledge, and we all know what our strengths and weaknesses are, that you try and iron those out as quickly as possible. Okay, ABC, good news writing. Accuracy, get your facts right. Why? Credibility. And it's our job to inform readers. We need to be seen as a trusted source. Our news organisation needs to have that credibility. Be clear and consistent. And I'll talk about the style guide a bit later on. And as I've just mentioned, correct use of punctuation, apostrophes, speech marks, which we'll go into greater depth about. As such, the Essential Reporting NCTJ guide clearly states if your words are going to be read and understood, you need to be able to spell and punctuate them correctly. And that was drilled into me when I was training to be a journalist. So let's have a look at certain aspects of that. Now, they're not as widespread as they once were, greengrocers, but it's quite a famous saying, the grocer's apostrophe, which is obviously wrong. And you see it everywhere on their signs. Fresh mangoes with an apostrophe placed in between the O and the S. Not needed. It's a plural. Number of mangoes. The same with plums in the other sign. So just be careful over the grocer's apostrophe, and have a look at your own greengrocer, see if they're doing that. Okay, quick word on apostrophes then. As most of you know, two main uses for apostrophe. The first is for contractions. So cannot gets shortened to can't, will not to won't, should not, shouldn't, I will, I'll, etc. So in the example of cannot gets contracted to can't, the apostrophe goes between the N and the T. And the apostrophe replaces the letter or letters that have been removed. Just one point to note, only use contractions please when you're quoting people, so indirect quotes. So Dave Lafferty should not have gone out this morning. He said, I shouldn't have gone out this morning. So only use contractions in direct quotes. And you'll see examples for that when you're looking around online stories on the various websites that have directed you to. The second use of apostrophes is possession. So something belongs to something else. So in terms of the singular, the boy's coat. So you're showing the possession that the coat belongs to the boy. If it's a number of boys, the apostrophe goes after the S, the boys' coats. So if it's singular, the apostrophe goes before the S. If it's plural, apostrophe goes after the S. Now, you don't show possession with words such as yours, hers, theirs, its. Words like women, children, men's, the apostrophe goes before the S. So, it's apostrophe S, going to be a sunny day. So that's a contraction. So for possession, its jaw was not broken after all. So don't use apostrophe for possession when using the word its. Okay, and here's an example that shows how using an apostrophe or not using an apostrophe can make a big difference to what you're trying to say. So, a business that knows its shit and a business that knows its shit. So, obviously, completely different meanings changed by the use or omission of an apostrophe. So, in the first one, obviously, that means the business that knows what it's doing. The second one, the business that knows it's absolutely rubbish, doesn't know what it's doing. So there you go. So be careful about that, and we'll talk a bit more about this in the workshops as well. But it's important we get the use of apostrophes correct. I wasn't very good at school, but it got drilled into me, and it's fairly straightforward if you just take a couple of minutes to have a look at those. Okay, style guides. Every news organisation, including Salford University, has a style guides. The guides to writing, editing and English usage, followed by all journalists at a media organisation. And it's so we all write in the same way, in the same style. Okay, they ensure clarity and consistency across content. They deal directly with the use of punctuation, and they also make sure we all write things such as dates in the same way. For example, at the MEN, you always wrote February 1 rather than February the 1st. Other organisations may use 1 February, but most will use February 1 as the date. So don't use 1st or anything like that. Okay, like I say, all good universities have the style guide. The Salford University one's available on Blackboard. If you have a dig, it's well worth having a look through. The one at the MEN was huge, and I know before I joined the MEN, someone was given 6 months off to update the style guide, which sounded quite a nice job to me. But anyway, it was all done and ready for me to use, and I kept that in the top drawer or on my desk while I was working, and used to reference it quite extensively. As an example from Salford University style guide, starting with A, abbreviations, addresses, ages. So do take a chance to have a look through that. Okay, just a little bit of an exercise about some common errors that pop up, not just here at university, but I still see these in action in the world of the media. So affect or effect, have a think about that. Which one's the verb, which one's the noun? Same with practice or practice. Stadiums or stadia is an interesting one. It's a matter of style, so again, that's one for the style guide, which you use at whichever organisation you end up doing some work for. Continual or continuous. Continual frequently happening, continuous non-stop, so there's a difference there. And complement or compliment. Obviously the first one is when you're praising somebody or something, and to compliment something is to make it complete. You're adding something to it. So just take a bit of time just to have a look at those examples there. Not going to go into it too much now. You can do that in your own time. But they are common mistakes that do pop up. Just while I'm on common mistakes, just a quick one about spelling, and it's one I see all the time. People attempted to spell protestor ending with OR, which is incorrect. So the word protester finishes ER, and I still see that popping up on news channels across those little tickers on the bottom and in newspapers and things like that. And, in my experience, that's one of the most commonly misspelt words. So protester is written with an ER at the end, so it's spelt. Okay, so take a bit of time to look at those, the correct usage. These words banned, the Daily Telegraph style guide. We had one common word that we banned the usage of at the MEN was cop. We didn't like that. We always used police. Daily Telegraph won't allow words such as bubbly, bloodbath, it's quite sensational, choke back tears, gunned down. or fighting for his or her life. We thought that was okay at the MEN, the fighting for his, her life, and I think we also used gun down. But we didn't use bloodbath or bubbly either. So just a few examples, some words that can be banned in a style guide. And just before we finish this section of the online lectures, I just want to remind you a bit about geography of where we are really. These are again common errors that do pop up in journalism, and indeed, you know, common life when you're chatting to people or you hear people talk about, you know, Great Britain or the UK. So Great Britain is merely England, Scotland, and Wales. The United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, which is the formal term for where we are, is obviously Great Britain, which is England, Scotland, and Wales, plus Northern Ireland. The British Isles, however, is all the islands around Great Britain and Ireland, and including those as well. So it's the UK, Republic of Ireland, Isle of Man, Channel Islands, and 6,000 smaller islands which ring the bigger islands that we're part of. So this issue popped up a bit during the Olympics actually, because the UK athletes are just known as Great Britain. So forgetting that, you know, Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom. So when you get to events like the Olympics, it always pops up, should the team be called the UK or Great Britain? And I saw a few stories about that during the recent games in Tokyo. So just have a think about that. I'm sure you all know this already, but it won't help to do give yourself a bit of a reminder. Just a quick one about Salford. I did mention this the other day when we did the news quiz, but Salford is a city, has been for nearly 100 years. It's also a metropolitan borough in Greater Manchester, which is a county. So metropolitan boroughs are local government districts, and there are 10 of those in the county of Greater Manchester. So you've got Manchester, Salford, Stockport, Trafford, Tameside, Oldham, Rochdale, Bury, Bolton, Wigan. I think that's all the ones we've got. So the population of Salford is 200,000 plus. So it's a big area, very newsy, as I said, and there's a number of famous people come from Salford. Jason Manford, I'm sure you've all seen on TV, and also the Corrie actress Kate Ford. A couple of members of New Order, and, you know, a few famous actors, Christopher Ecclestone. So it's a really good area, and when you start right for Salford now, there's plenty for you to get your teeth into. Okay, that's the end of part one. Catch you in a bit. Thanks.